What are emotions? The word emotion comes from the Latin emotio, which means impulse or movement toward action. An emotion is simply a chemical reaction in our brain that drives us and moves us to act, with the sole purpose of ensuring our survival. In other words, emotions are a defense system of our body that are designed to last for a short period of time. Just enough to get our body moving and trigger a response proportional to the stimulus that generates them. So, what are feelings? When the emotions generated in the limbic system reach the part of the brain associated with reasoning and logic, and are identified, what we know as feelings arise. Feelings are, in other words, the conscious interpretation and subjective experience we have of our emotions. To the ability to identify emotions correctly and early, for their later management. It's what the American psychologist Daniel Goleman formulated and popularized in 1995 as emotional intelligence. And how are our emotions and feelings similar to those of our dogs? According to what neuroscientists Jack Panksepp and Lucy state in their book, The Archaeology of the Mind, The Neuroevolutionary Origins of Human Emotions, dogs and humans share a similar brain structure. This allows us to generate 7 basic emotional systems in order to trigger 2 types of behavior, one of approach and the other of avoidance toward the stimulus that provokes them. We share the same brain structure with other mammals that allows us to generate 7 basic emotional systems in order to trigger 2 types of behavior, one of approach and the other of avoidance toward the stimulus that provokes them. We know that animals have the capacity and levels of consciousness necessary to have feelings, although it is impossible to know how and to what extent they experience them, because we don't share the same language to communicate and due to the differences in size and folds in the cerebral cortex. That's why it's important to try to avoid anthropomorphism. What does it mean to project our logic and thoughts onto them? Only if we can accept that in the animal world there are various ways of having feelings and that we will probably never be able to understand them. From our human perspective, we can enjoy this diversity and thus improve our relationship with other species. In other words, our ability to empathize with animals and nature shouldn't depend on their capacity to feel and experience life the same way we do. So, what happens when there's an overload of emotional burden? Humans in the 21st century no longer need emotions as a basic defense system for survival. What was originally designed to last just long enough to push our body into action today resides in our prefrontal lobes indefinitely, permeating all our thoughts and opinions. In summary, our emotions seep in. They soak through and sometimes contaminate both our ideas and our perception of the world around us. And people who have an overload of emotional burden have a harder time accessing new information, since the filters and barriers of emotions hinder learning. In other words, an overload of emotional burden makes our brain unwilling to learn, but rather to confirm what it already knows. We're not suggesting that emotions and feelings aren't important. Of course they are. But to explore new ideas and broaden our perspective, we invite you to set aside your experiences for the moment. Knowledge, emotions, and feelings that come with them so that we can have a conversation that allows us to grow and understand the reality of the human-canine bond.